A single sentence can decide the fate of nations and the flow of the world's most vital resource. Welcome to Insight History HD. Together, we will peel back the layers of narratives long locked away in the archives of history. What you are hearing is not a prophecy. It is a scenario, a potential future rooted in a geopolitical fault line drawn more than 50 years ago. 20%. That's how much of the entire world's seaborne petroleum flows through this one single maritime chokepoint. Well, the answer doesn't lie in a modern conflict. It's found in the final fading hours of an empire's influence, and in a diplomatic pact that was somehow both a solution and a ticking time bomb.
So, in our scenario, that time bomb has just gone off. The Strait has become a theater of incredibly high-stakes confrontation, where a de facto blockade has brought hundreds of vessels to a complete standstill.
You know, a crisis like this is the culmination of decades and decades of tension. But to truly understand the hurricane, we have to trace it all the way back to the flap of a single butterfly's wings.
So let's go back. The year is 1968. Britain, the long-standing protector of the Gulf's trucial states, suddenly announces it's withdrawing its military. And just like that, it creates this enormous power vacuum. So, as the British are packing their bags, Iran decides to revive its dormant claims to three small, seemingly insignificant but incredibly strategic islands, Abu Musa and the Greater and Lesser Tunbs. What followed was this frantic diplomatic effort, a real race against the clock. It all led to a very unique and, frankly, a very controversial agreement for the island of Abu Musa. And this foundational sentence from the 1971 Memorandum of Understanding really says it all. It created this framework for coexistence, but here's the kicker. It solved absolutely nothing about sovereignty. Think of it like a geopolitical timeshare. It was a bizarre setup where both parties agreed to coexist on the island without ever admitting the other truly had a right to be there. And make no mistake, this wasn't some quiet backroom deal. As a memorandum from the U.S. State Department to Henry Kissinger, dated December 1st, 1971, confirms, this deal had international acknowledgement at the absolute highest levels. But the Tunbs, they were a completely different story. With no agreement reached for those two islands, Iranian forces simply seized them by amphibious assault, all happening in the final dramatic hours of the British protectorate. And the controversy was immediate. According to the Hansard records of the UK Parliament, this question from Jeremy Thorpe reveals just how much debate there was. An acknowledgement that this issue was completely unresolved right from day one. So the events of 1971, they didn't close a chapter of history. No, they ripped open a brand new one that would be defined by militarization and a constantly simmering conflict. The first major test of the Strait's vulnerability, that came during the Iran-Iraq War. The so-called tanker war established a dangerous precedent for disrupting global exports, a brutal conflict with over 100 attacks on civilian ships. Then, in 1992, that ambiguous 1971 agreement was basically shattered. Iran declared full sovereignty, changing the facts on the ground, restricting access, fortifying its presence, and entrenching its military control. So all this physical control of the islands, it obviously gives Iran incredible leverage over the shipping lanes. But the true battle, the one that's still being fought today, is a battle of international law. And here's the core of the problem. You see, Iran has not ratified the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. This means it rejects the global standard of transit passage, creating a permanent legal friction point. And this deep legal ambiguity isn't just a technicality. It hangs over the world's most critical artery for oil, making literally any dispute a potential global economic crisis. You have to understand, from Iran's perspective, taking the islands in 1971 wasn't just a territorial gain. It was seen as something much bigger, the restoration of its historic role as the arbiter, the guardian of the Gulf. Looking at it through that lens, the entire European colonial era was just an interruption, a brief interregnum. For them, 1971 marked a return to a historical norm of regional maritime power. And so, the unresolved sovereignty claims from that one day in 1971 remain the active, burning fuse beneath the world's energy supply. Every single tanker that passes, every naval patrol, every diplomatic standoff, it all happens in the shadow of that decision made over half a century ago.
If this journey has offered you a new perspective, support our exploration by subscribing to Insight History HD. Thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next narrative.